Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for this week's Wargaming terrain tutorial. I hope you enjoy this video. Should be a nice and quick one. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you do. Now this week's video we're going to look back at some sandbags I did quite a while ago now. These were great. The process is still essentially the same, but I've managed to find a couple of ways to really sort of, bring these up to the next level. And I want to share that with you today, so let's get into it. Now the only real difference from the first original process is going to be this cloth that I've got on the table here, which I'll explain a little bit more about in just a moment. So for my sandbags I just use this air drying clay. This stuff is just really cheap, very effective for this type of thing, and super simple to use. So it's not very messy. Just going to tear off a small section of clay here. You don't need a lot for your first roll. You'll probably want to repeat this process if you need stacks of sandbags, but here I'm just rolling out a little sausage, so this is just thinning it down as much as I can to kind of get that scale and that size of those sandbags that I want. Obviously if you want large sandbags, you're going to want a larger tube of clay here. Now all I'm going to do is just lay it onto this canvas that I've got, which is just some of that same canvas I used for the battle mat videos. Now this stuff it doesn't need to be polybacked at all. This stuff's just got quite a large weave, I guess. So the pattern that I press in there when I actually squash down the little tube of clay really works well to sort of give it some texture at least, because it was one of the things about the first lot I did. I mean, the first lot looked really good. I still use them, but if I'm going to make some more, I thought I'd try and make them a little bit better, which is what we're doing today. For my base on this one, I'm just using some cereal box cardboard. I have glued two pieces of cereal box cardboard together there just to get this a little bit more rigid, not that it really needs to be. Here what I'm doing is just with that spread of glue that I've used, that PVA glue there, using very liberally, so you want a fair bit of this stuff on there to sort of squish these down into. It acts as a bit of a mortar, and it will shrink significantly as it dries, so you won't have all those little ripples of glue. It's not like hot glue or anything like that. So I'm just going to build this up here. Now you'll notice when you build these, or when you make these sandbags, you'll probably have a lot of different sizes over the time that you build them. So some big, some small, some in the middle, some slightly odd shaped. It really doesn't matter. You don't want to be sort of aiming for perfection on these. They're so quick and easy to make that it doesn't really matter if you have different sizes. I've found uses, as you can see here, for building up different parts of the sandbag wall here. Having smaller ones and larger ones is actually quite helpful. So with this sandbag wall, I want a bit of a angle on the front of it, so I wanted to sort of double back a little bit with these and overlap them, just to get a little bit of an angle there at the start, so a bit more of a foundation for these sandbags. Now one thing I'm also going to do here is just add a couple more at the front that have just sort of fallen off or been left stacked there. One of the things I did when I set these sandbags to dry is I just bent a couple of them over, as you can see there, just to make a bit of a folded sack. This is really handy for gluing these on the front and around the defenses that you're building. So next thing I want to do is add some spikes here. These spikes will be really important because I need something to kind of stand the barbed wire against or glue it against. So here I'm just sort of getting a bit of an eyeball of what I'm sort of aiming at, which is a bit of a cross section. I'm just using matchsticks, and I'm just going to actually drill out a small section, not all the way through obviously. You just want to drill out a small hole there, which is big enough for your matchstick to go in. And this will just add a bit of a spike to the front of our defenses here. So if you find your matchstick is just a little bit too large, just trim it down here with your craft knife. You only want to take a really little bit off. You just want to be able to press it into that hole. You want to do that for all three. Doing this without gluing at this stage. I will come back and add glue to that very shortly, but this is just to sort of get a sense of what I'm looking for with these bits of wood here. So when it comes to gluing in, I'm just using the PVA glue again. Make sure I cover up the hole that I've drilled so that when I push in this spike, it'll actually hold in there and won't come loose at any stage in the future. So there you can see I've glued these all in now. I'm just going to wait for that PVA glue to dry a little bit before I go in and give it a good coat of this watered down black paint and Mod Podge. It doesn't matter to use Mod Podge or PVA in this instance, it's just I have this bottle mixed up that's got Mod Podge in it. You want it to be quite watered down. You would have seen me do this in quite a few videos before, where we want this to sort of run into all the cracks and crevices of this build. So you know, the watered PVA and black paint mix is pretty important to kind of cover up as much of that white as you can. Here you can see we're done. It's not a perfect paint job, we're not looking for that because we're going to cover it up a fair bit now. The painting process for this one is really simple. I'm going to use an airbrush in this case, just because I want it to be quite quick. But you know, you could still brush this on and get a very similar effect. So don't be too put off by the airbrush I'm using here. I'm just going to use some of this oak brown to really base this thing after the black's gone on. I do use the Army Painter thinner flow improver, which seems to work really well with their paints, just to get this through the airbrush. Now I'm just trying to get this, as you can see here, angled from the sort of from the top, just so I keep some of those shadows and those different shades of brown that I've put in there. The next thing I did was actually tried to lighten this up a little bit, and I mixed in the mummy robes and the desert yellow, and my mix was a little bit off, so I ended up with it was a bit too light, a bit too white. So I've actually just, all I did was added in some more desert yellow to that mix, so that I was getting a lot more yellow than I was white. So as you can see, once that's dried, it's turned out pretty good. I could probably still go in with some more effects paint wise. I could maybe give it a wash or something like that, but at this stage I'm looking for quick terrain, so I'm going to kind of just leave it there. I'm just going to get some straight PVA glue here and run it around all the base, the exposed base here. This is just for our ground cover to go on. Now for this, I'm actually just using dirt. This dirt here I've just got from my backyard. You would have seen me use it in the bunker build that we did. This stuff's really good. Again, if I can avoid having to paint sand or ground cover in any way, I'll do it. So I'm using this brown stuff because it seems to fit really well. There you can see I've added just a few little rocks and some scorched tufts of grass here. I thought they worked really well, the dark in there. I could have gone with green or lighter color, but this one I think worked out pretty well. The next thing I'm doing is just using the razor wire. This stuff is from Army Painter, and I have to say one container so far has lasted me quite a while, and I only use small amounts of it, so it seems to be going a fair distance, that container that I've got. So I'm just going to add a few little pieces of wire there, as you can see there, the razor wire on the front. I do try to tone that down a little bit with a wash or something, but I think you'll agree this one's turned out really nicely. You can still see that texture on those sandbags, and I'm really happy with spending a little bit of time to try and upgrade that last build that we did. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe if you did. If you have any questions or suggestions, please just leave a comment below. Always happy to hear from you guys. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video.